Hi, I'm Mark. This is Mark's Tech Vlogs on YouTube, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Switchbot Roller Shade. Now, if you've been around on this channel for a while, you'll know that I'm a big fan of Switchbot. They generally make some really good quality, but also really affordable smart home products. And on top of that, a lot of these products work with a whole variety of third-party services, including Matter and therefore Apple Home. And one of their latest products, which I've actually been using for about a month now, is their Smart Roller Shade. This is a trimmable roller shade that is Matter compatible via one of their hubs. It can also be powered by a solar panel. That means you'll never have to charge it. Now, Switchbot very kindly reached out and offered to send this to me to review. That means I haven't paid for it, but this isn't a sponsored video, and also Switchbot don't know what I'm going to say until this video goes live. And I like keeping things that way because it means that I can make honest reviews for you guys. And in this video, I'm going to go through everything you need to know about this product, my experience of fitting it, my experience of using it, and whether I think you should buy one or not. Because it's going to be a long video, I'll put some chapters below. I'll also put links below where you can check out these products on Switchbot and Amazon. And let's start with design. So this blind comes with a choice of white or grey roller shades. Whichever model you choose, the top is silver. And it has this nice modern looking design. The base bar is also silver regardless of which colour you choose. I do think it'd be nice if these matched or were both white, but I still think it looks quite nice. The top of it isn't too chunky, but if you are going to mount it on the inside of your window, you'll want to make sure it's greater than 10 centimeters deep so it doesn't protrude. That's because before the mounts, the blind is 9 centimeters deep itself. It also comes with a plug-in up or down button that you can use and control it manually. There's also the option for an extra £30 to purchase a solar panel with this. And really, I'd recommend picking up the solar panel because it means you'll never have to charge it, and the solar panel just sticks on your window. The main advantage of the product is also the main flaw in the design, in my opinion, and that's because it's adjustable. That means the silver top and silver bottom aren't completely flat. That's because there's an area where one part slides into the other. And personally, I do think one piece would have looked nicer. So that's design. Let's talk about specification and price. So when you buy one of these, you'll choose from white or grey shades and then from 4 different sizes. So the small one costs £170, and that's for windows with a width of 22.8 inches to 31.5 inches. The medium one is £180, and that's for windows between 31.5 inches and 43.3 inches. The large is £190, and that's for windows between 43.3 inches and 55.1 inches. And then the XL is £269, and that's going to cover you for windows between 55.1 inches and 72.8 inches. Now the XL is the one you're going to see throughout this video because my kitchen window is quite wide. Now I could have probably just about got away with the large model at its full width, but I wanted to be able to show you guys the cutting process. And as I said, if you want a solar panel on top, it will cost you £30. Likewise, if you want to control it by Matter, so in something like Apple Home and out of home access, you are going to need a Switchbot hub as well. If you get the hub 2, that's about £70, and a hub mini with Matter support is £60. Now I say this with every single Switchbot product, but you will almost certainly never pay the full price because they always have offers on. At the very minimum, there's a 10% voucher code I've got below. Quite often, however, there are bigger discounts going on between their site and Amazon, so make sure you use both links and check for the best price. Now, of course, these blinds aren't cheap compared to the ones you can just buy off the shelf in whatever DIY store you go into, but those ones aren't smart. To put it in perspective, however, if I was to get a fully bespoke blind for my size kitchen window, it would cost me about £700 for a smart one. That means the Switchbot one, whilst it's not cheap, is still a considerable saving. So moving on from price, let's talk a bit more about spec. So these blinds are 100% blackout. They can also insulate your window and have UV protection. If you want to group multiple ones together, maybe you've got a conservatory or something, you can group up to 8 together. That means you can control all of them with one press. If you use the solar panel, then they will basically charge themselves, but can also respond to the light sensitivity coming from the solar panel. That's a really good way to automate them if you want to. If you don't want to use that solar panel, Switchbot say a full battery will get you 8 months of usage. Now Switchbot do also say you can change the fabric, and it looks like they're going to have some really cool fabric designs coming out soon. These aren't released yet, so I can't tell you anything about price of these. And then in terms of noise, they operate at 30 decibels, so they are pretty quiet, and you can even throw them into a quiet drift mode where they're even quieter. And then finally, if you use a Switchbot hub with these, they are Matter compatible, so they work with Apple Home, Google Home, Alexa, IFTTT, and Siri shortcuts. So let's move on to what you get in the box and talk about installation. So these shades come with all the fixtures and fittings you need to mount the blinds. They come with a cutter device, a tiny stapler, which I'll talk about a bit later on, a screwdriver, screws, raw plugs, instructions, and a few stickers and tape that you'll use throughout installation. Now before you even start installing these, and probably before you even purchase these, I'd recommend watching Switchbot's installation video. I'll put a link to that below. And that's because if you need to trim these blinds, installation is a bit tricky. So the first thing you do, and this is the easiest step, is you pair these blinds with the Switchbot app. This is done by holding down the button on the device, hitting the plus in the Switchbot app, and finding the roller shades and adding them. The app will then talk you through installation and it offers you a video or text. And I actually recommend choosing the text and image option, but also having that YouTube video on your laptop. And I'm going to do a brief overview of that setup process. So the first thing Switchbot will get you to do is remove the roller shade from the mount. They will then get you to measure your window. At this point, you'll loosen the screws on the mount of the blind and push it in so you get it to the right size. You'll then tighten up those screws again. That will get the actual mount to the size that it needs to be for you. Switchbot will then also get you to try and mount the brackets. And the way they do this is they try and get you to use the bottom bar and some stickers that come with it in order to get the right positions for these. In my opinion, this is overly complicated and essentially just make sure the two brackets are about 4 inches from each side of your window. This is because the blind mount can click into these from anywhere on the top, so it doesn't have to be that precise. And at this point, unless like me you've got the world's most solid lintel, that's the easy bit done. The cutting is where it gets tricky. And cutting basically involves wrapping the included plastic sticker around the blind where you're going to cut it and then attaching it back into the mount. You'll then attach the cutting attachment to the other end of the frame and screw this in place. And this is actually pretty clever. One thing to note, however, is that there is a plastic cap at the other end of the blind where it goes into the motor. You want to remove this before doing it. This will get the blind a little bit further down. Now, I don't think the step-to-step guide said to do this at this stage. That meant when I eventually came to put the blind on and remove that, my blind was actually a little bit short. The Switchbot app will then start the cutting process. This basically uses a motor to spin the blind round whilst you tighten the screw on the cutting device. It's basically a little guillotine and pretty clever. Next, you'll remove the cutting device and take the blind out the frame again. You'll remove all the stickers from across the blind and then you'll fully unroll it. Now these blinds are pretty long and my version was the wide version and Switchbot say to roll this out flat, which I just didn't have the space for. So I rolled it out very carefully, kind of gently stacking it on top of each other, trying not to add any creases. When you fully unrolled it, you'll then remove the plastic sleeve. Now depending on the size of your blind, this might also have been cut as well. At this point, you'll also undo some screws, slide the metal part in or out, and attach any plastic tube you've got left. You'll then wind the blinds back up again. At this point, it's time to attach that base bar. And in the box, Switchbot include this kind of long plastic strip that looks like the plastic wrapping you find round boxes. For that reason, I initially didn't even think this was part of a blind. I thought it was a bit of rubbish. With this strip, you basically staple it along the bottom of the blind using that little stapler. Then you can slide the bottom mount over it. And as far as I can tell, the only reason this isn't on the blind out of the box is I don't think the cutting device will get through it. This does create an extra step for you. And then finally you pop the whole blind back together and put back on the end cap. You then clip it on those mounts on your window. It simply clicks into these and this is really simple. At this point, if you want to use the wired remote, you can attach that as well. And there's also a little cable tidy that goes with that. The same goes for the solar panel. Most of the solar panel cable stays in the solar panel and you can just expose the amount you need. The final thing to do at this point is to calibrate the blinds in the Switchbot app. This will help it know how far up and down it needs to go. And then if you want to, you can also expose it to matter via one of the Switchbot hubs, and it will automatically appear somewhere else if you've already got that hub set up there. So for me, I added it to one of my hubs and it automatically appeared in Apple Home. As I said, if you want to use it with something like Apple Home or another Matter device, you are going to need a Switchbot Hub 2 or a Switchbot Hub Mini with Matter support. This whole process took me just over an hour, and if I'm honest, it wasn't a great experience. Honestly, I think simplicity has been compromised in order to make this blind adjustable. And trying to get the bottom bar to even stay on over that plastic was just a massive faff. And I actually ended up using an extra bit of it to try and make it thicker. And if you're buying this blind, I'd keep that in mind, because there's actually points during the fitting process where I just wanted to throw it out the window rather than mount it to it. But setup aside, let's talk about actually using these blinds. So firstly, you can manually control them via the Switchbot app or your third-party app of choice. So for me, that's Apple Home. There, you can manually drag the shades open or closed, and they respond generally pretty quick, although certainly quicker via the Switchbot app than the Apple Home app. In the Switchbot app, there's quick buttons to fully open, fully close, or pause the action that's in progress. Clicking into more in the Switchbot app also lets you set up customized positions. There's also the option to toggle on quiet drift, which reduces the speed of the motor and therefore the noise. This is great if you want to use these blinds somewhere like a bedroom. You can also create schedules and also create automations based on light levels from the solar panel. There's also settings to pair with a Switchbot wireless remote if you want a wireless remote option rather than having a trailing cable. You can also recalibrate and group with other sets of blinds. Where I've mostly been using this, however, when I haven't been testing it, is in the Apple Home app with my morning and evening routine. So my morning automation in my Apple Home app opens the blinds around my house at certain times. And then my evening automation closes the blinds around my house at sunset. And generally in the month that I've been using these, I found it works pretty much every single time. There's only been one time where they haven't opened. At that point, I've just asked Siri to open them for me instead. And this actually ties in with my experience of using the Switchbot Curtain 3 and also the Switchbot Blind Tilts. For the most part, using the Apple Home works well, but there are occasions where it just doesn't quite kick in. It's never enough to bother me, and I just manually do it if I need to, and it is literally like once a month at worst. Now, automations via the Switchbot app are generally more reliable, but I prefer using it in Apple Home because I can tie it into other devices around my house. For example, my Blinds Magic Blinds that I reviewed a while ago. And I do think that solar panel with these Switchbot Roller Shades is worth picking up because it does keep it nicely charged up all the time. And then that included button remote is a nice extra to have, but it does mean having a trade-in wire, so I haven't used it much beyond testing it. All in all, however, what is the verdict on Switchbot's Roller Shade? And the verdict from me on these is mixed. Once you've got them set up, they are great blackout blinds with a variety of third-party services they work with, and they work reliably. But the thing that stops me being able to recommend them wholeheartedly is that setup process. And in my opinion, it is just overly complicated and just a faff. I also think it's way too easy to mess up, and as I said, my blinds are slightly shorter than I wanted them to be. And I think that's the payoff for the price of these compared to fully custom blinds. And actually made to measure smart blinds will cost you about £300 to £400 more. So this is what I think. If you're mounting your blinds on the outside of your window, then just buy some blinds off the shelf. At that point, if you've got Venetian blinds, pick up the Switchbot blind tilt devices, which are fantastic, or something like the Meros Smart Roller Shade controller. Aqara also do a similar one, and I'll link all of those below. If you do like the look of these Switchbot ones, then actually you could still go for these as long as you haven't got to do any cutting. But the previous option of an off-the-shelf blind and a retrofit motor is probably the more affordable one. If you want to inside mount these and the inside of your windows isn't a standard size, then I'd only go for these if fully custom blinds aren't affordable for you. And I just recommend being really careful with the cutting process and making sure the plastic end caps aren't in the blind when you're cutting it. And like I said, I think that's what I did wrong, and that's what means my blind is slightly shorter than I want it to be, even though I was trying to follow the instructions really carefully. So it is very much a mixed bag in my opinion. They're great once they're up and running, but the setup process is tricky. If you do want to pick them up or check out more about them, I will put links below to both Switchbot and Amazon. They are affiliate links, so if you use those links and make a purchase, that helps this channel out. This isn't a sponsored video, I never take sponsored videos, and this isn't my full-time job, so thank you if you do use one of those links. If you've got any questions, stick them below and I'll answer those for you. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys again soon.